47 steps below the sun-washed temples of Karnak, carved into living bedrock, lies a chamber sealed by cedar and bronze. The year is approximately 1214 BCE. On an obsidian altar, a woman named Kia of Mitanni has been awake for 6 days. Until 31 days ago, she was a noblewoman, educated in languages and astronomy. Captured when Egyptian forces overwhelmed her father's Syrian garrison, she was transported across the desert, examined by physicians, evaluated by priests, and selected for what temple records call divine service of the highest order. She now understands that phrase. The air reeks of kefi incense and something organic and foul. The chanting of 7 priests surrounds her, their words in an archaic dialect meant to disorient. Arrayed nearby are copper and obsidian instruments, ceramic vessels, and glass vials containing substances that induce states she has no words for. The high priest, User Montu, approaches. He has performed these rituals on over 200 women. His records, fragments of which survive today, describe Kia clinically: subject responsive but resistant. Recommend extended protocol. Projected readiness, 14 days. Kia does not yet know she is not being punished. She is being prepared. This is not the Egypt of pyramids and golden treasures. This is the Egypt of chambers beneath temples, of systematic processing documented in records considered too disturbing for public translation. For over a century, scholars have known of papyri describing in cold detail the preparation of captive women, methods modern neuroscience recognizes as targeted destruction of identity. The goal was not to create slaves, but vessels. Of those who entered these chambers, 83% never emerged with their personalities intact. 61% died within 5 years of the rituals. 12% survived as empty shells, present but empty. 7% became the celebrated oracles and priestesses of legend, venerated, but fundamentally not the women who entered. Hollywood cannot show this because the horror is not dramatic violence, but systematic, psychological unraveling that continues for weeks. This was no random enslavement. Temple scouts accompanied military campaigns, evaluating captives for specific traits: age 1830, in good health, evidence of education and complex thought, a strong will and capacity for resistance. This last trait was crucial. The priests were not looking for docility, they sought psychological substance to harvest. A strong identity was raw material to be broken down and repurposed. Kia was chosen specifically because she attempted to organize an escape during her capture, demonstrating the resilience they required. Captives like Kia were isolated immediately, transported in cages, fed minimally. This was the first stage of coercive control, severing social bonds before they even reached the temple. Upon arrival at Karnak, Kia underwent days of evaluation before being assigned to Chamber 7. The first stage, called the severing, began. Its purpose was precise: to cut every tether to her former self. First, physical unmaking. Every strand of her hair was removed over 5 hours with copper razors and pumice, a painful, abrasive process conducted in silence. She was then placed in a natron bath, the alkaline solution burning her skin. The physical pain was secondary to the lesson. Her reactions were not to be trusted. The link between feeling and expression must be severed. Second, memory attack. She was forced to recount her life story, only to be told it was all a fiction. Each assertion of her past was met with correction, precise pain, confinement, thirst, until she learned defending her identity only brought suffering. Third, forced betrayal. Personal belongings from her former life were brought before her. She was made to destroy them herself, melting jewelry, tearing a letter from her mother. Each act was complicity, a betrayal of her old self engineered to induce shame. Fourth, sensory shattering. Cycles of extreme sensory deprivation, hours in pitch silence, were alternated with sensory overload, drums, chanting, light. This prevents the brain from adapting, destabilizing memory and the sense of continuous self. After 5 days, the priests noted, Subject 147 has achieved primary severance. Identity markers significantly weakened. Kia was adrift. Her past felt distant and unreal. The second stage, the opening, aimed to make the shattered psyche receptive to new programming. Kia was moved to a chamber with altars aligned to celestial patterns and secured to the obsidian slab. The priests used combined methods to induce an altered state of consciousness. Psychoactive ointments, substances absorbed through the skin, their ingredients listed in texts, induced dissociative, trance-like states. Nervous system manipulation. Pressure applied to points of power, likely major nerve clusters, triggered autonomic responses. Psychological programming. In this suggestible state, she was bombarded with new narratives. Identity replacement. You have always been a vessel. Your memories are illusions. Deity invocation. Priests addressed her as a goddess, treating her as already divine. Boundary dissolution. Continuous touch and sensory overwhelm blurred her sense of where her body ended. For 7 days, this continued. Resistance became acceptance. She began to speak the divine names they gave her. Stage 3, the binding, ensured the change was permanent through behavioral conditioning. Pain association. She was forced to speak of her old life, her name, her home, while experiencing pain. The mind linked those concepts with suffering. Relief association. When she spoke as the vessel, using her divine name, she received water, food, warmth. Social reinforcement. Other transformed priestesses were brought to welcome her into their community, validating her new identity. Modern psychology recognizes this as classical conditioning. The self-named Kia became associated with pain. The vessel identity, Mut-Emheb, Mut is in festival, became associated with relief. After 3 days, she no longer thought of herself as Kia. The final stage was a ritual ceremony, a sacred ratification of the transformation. Dressed in white linen and gold, Kia was tested. Shown objects from Mitanni, she showed no recognition. Asked questions only Kia could answer, she expressed genuine confusion. She passed. The ceremony that followed, the union with the divine and establishment of function, involved rituals the texts describe obliquely, marking her formal entry into service. 15 days after descending, she emerged as Mut-Emheb. She would serve as a priestess for 11 years before dying, the records note, from a wasting illness consistent with long-term trauma. She was 33. No record suggests she ever remembered. Other women's fates reveal the protocol's brutal range. Nefertari of Kush. Exceptionally resilient, she resisted standard methods. The priests subjected her to total isolation for 19 days, a duration that guarantees psychological breakdown. She broke, becoming the priestess Hathor-Akhet. Yet temple notes mention occasional recurrence, Kushite words spoken unaware. A fragment of her survived. Isneferit of Canaan. Selected at 19, she was deemed insufficiently developed. She died on the 8th day during the opening stage. Her death prompted the only recorded reform, a warning to better screen for physical resilience in younger subjects. The method was never questioned. Tawasrit of Libya. She uniquely pretended to break, maintaining her inner self while perfectly performing the vessel role. After 6 months, she attempted escape and nearly succeeded. Recaptured, she was made an example in a 40-day processing that deliberately destroyed her capacity for coherent thought. She died unable to speak or understand language. Maritain of Syria, a priest's daughter, she already understood dissociation. She flowed through the protocol with detached ease, becoming the renowned Oracle Neith-Emakhet. A private priestly memoir, however, suspected the truth. The vessel is occupied by the very person we tried to remove. Her prophecies come from a Syrian priest's daughter who learned to see in ways we do not understand. She may have used the ritual as a shield, her true self the source of her famed wisdom. Archaeology confirms the texts. Chambers at Karnak and Luxor match descriptions, containing obsidian slabs, leather straps, and natron-lined basins. Skeletal remains show bone abnormalities from prolonged immobilization and patterns of healed trauma. Chemical analysis of residue in vessels identifies psychoactive compounds. Isotopic studies of bones in temple graves reveal non-Egyptian origins, women from Canaan, Nubia, Libya. Contemporary neuroscience and psychology recognize these ancient techniques. The severing is identity attack and sensory manipulation to destabilize the self. The opening induces dissociative trance states for installing new beliefs. The binding is classical conditioning. The completion is ritual initiation for social commitment. The priests were empirical masters of the human psyche. Their success was the creation of genuine dissociative identity states, women who truly experienced themselves as someone else. This was not divine ordination. It was a premeditated institutional process of psychological destruction, refined over centuries and applied to thousands of captured women. Their strength was harvested, their selves erased, to create useful instruments for the state religion. The temples are dust, but the evidence remains in papyri and bones. These women deserve to be remembered not as vessels, oracles, or priestesses, but as Kia, Nefertari, Isneferet, Tawasret, and Meritate, the people they were before they were taken below. This is the hidden history. This is what the chambers were for.